All right, it is SNL. Landry Locker, Cody Stutes with you. We watched some championship football yesterday. Texans got to watch as well. Let's just jump right in. Did the championship weekend increase the frustration that Texans fans may have been feeling leading into that game and then after you actually watched the games?
I mean, how could it not? It was you watch that was not an incredible performance by the New England Patriots, and you have to feel like the Texans could have done something close to replicating that. Obviously, we have concerns about what CJ Stroud would have done in a game of that magnitude and lowering the floor of the team, but that Texans defense felt like it was built for a situation like that to keep the Broncos from being able to put points on the board, and extremely frustrating to watch that. And then just to kind of see some other awesome stuff that it feels like the Texans don't really have. It just kind of hits you like a bat. Like, yeah, you were close, but you might be a little bit further away than you thought you were, in the middle of a game against the Patriots in Foxborough a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I watched it, and I didn't really I didn't sit there and think, oh, God, the Texans, man, they could have easily won this game. I think even the way in which New England won, I don't know that that's necessarily something that the Texans would have been capable of doing. Drake May was willing to use his legs. I think he had 6 first downs and a touchdown. And he was able to win ugly and do just what was required of him to win. So I saw that. And then from the Denver perspective, they just seem to be, even in defeat, they just seem to be light years ahead of the Texans when it comes to situational and everything, even just making the field goal attempts possibilities at the end of the half. I think you could kind of see that. So yeah, I watched it and I felt I didn't feel like the Texans are just right there. I know that technically they were, and it was back and forth, but I didn't watch it and just say, man, they could have won this game. I don't know that they can rise to the occasion at this point.
Yeah, I think it's primarily like a CJ Stroud thing, isn't it? Like I would have been pretty nervous to watch Stroud ultimately when that weather rolled through and see what he would have done. And you look at the mistakes that the Broncos did make. I mean, Stidham made a mistake that set the Patriots up right there knocking on the door, and they took advantage of it. The Texans have had issues taking advantage of things like that and turning it into touchdowns. A lot of times they've ended up with field goals and just sometimes when it gets really hard to move the football, it feels like the Texans kind of get into that rut. It just kind of gets stuck. And at least both these teams, the Patriots and the Broncos, got some cracks at it there towards the end. I know there was a blocked field goal and, a missed field goal and this and that, but they were able to kind of at least move it forward. And it felt like the Texans that played in the Patriots game on offense might have struggled to do that, might have struggled to replicate that. I would have loved to have seen the Texans defense play in that game, though. I feel like they could have done a roughly the same job that the Patriots did in that one.
Yeah, Stidham, for how bad Stidham was, he was actually kind of a better version of what Stroud was in his 2 playoff games. Like that's the crazy thing about it is now, I mean, Jared, they're putting CJ Stroud as a gift for Jared Stidham now. That's how bad it was. But yeah, I didn't watch that and feel like there was a missed. I mean, there was obviously a missed opportunity to not being there, but I didn't feel like the Texans are any closer. Quite frankly, I think the development and growth that those teams endure when they're in those types of situations, I think it kind of pushes them a little bit more ahead of the Texans.
And you mentioned the situational football, just how well how well all 4 of these teams went and just tried to maximize it. And you saw the little mistake, when you should go for 2, when you don't go for 2, when you do kick the football, when you don't kick the football. And the Texans have been a pretty good for most of the season. Yeah, the memes, they're not stopping. They're not stopping. But the Texans have been, for the most part, a take the points team. And there have been drives where they've gone for it on 4th, and the next time 4th down comes up, they end up kicking it. So they've been a take the points team a handful of times. But the end of first half operation is not good for the Texans. That's something that's got to improve. It looked good. It looked like these 2 teams had opportunities the Broncos and the Patriots, and they tried to maximize what they had right there at the end of the first half. And we know that's been a struggle throughout the course of the year for consistency from the Texans. And sometimes they don't know to push the gas pedal or to throw it into reverse or just put the brakes on. It's all very irregular, and they don't have like a standard that they go by on that. So situational football, they certainly feel behind from not just the AFC teams, but all the teams that were involved in championship weekend.
Yeah, and I think it's beyond the quarterback too. I think there's a few other things that I think kind of stick out. It did feel like these teams, and maybe not the Rams as much, but they provide the running back committee that I've been begging for a long time. Like they all seem to have multiple backs that they use throughout. I think that's something that perhaps the Texans could figure out. But I just think when we go to the Seattle side of things, I knew this question was coming, but I don't know how to look at this. But the Sam Darnold revival, how does that make you feel about CJ Stroud? The glass half full would say, well, you're not a finished product, so your best days can be ahead of you. The glass half empty can say, well, this kind of shows that your early, what happens early doesn't matter as much. So maybe it's like the opposite, where CJ Stroud started out hot and now there's on like some sort of decline. But when you look at Sam Darnold, how does that make you feel when you bring it back to the localized POV with Stroud?
Yeah, your point about, hey, the early days don't matter because you can climb out of them. The early days don't matter because you could slip and fall and never get your footing back. And that's kind of what the worry would be with CJ Stroud right now. I suppose it gives you like a little bit of hope. I don't think there should be a whole lot of hope because Darnold feels very like the mentality. It feels very blank. It feels very whatever the team needs, never too high, never too low. Like, I mean, he throws a fist pump in there every now and then, but he's not doing the moping and the throwing the helmet and slamming it down on the little warmer thing when he goes and sits down. And it just feels like the mentality that Darnold has is a bit different. And maybe that's something that was further exacerbated by the fact that he had to have these different stops before he ended up getting some confidence going with Kevin O'Connell last year and then ultimately getting it going with the Seahawks this year after the year in Minnesota. So maybe there's obviously something to build on in Seattle after the success in Minnesota, but it feels like his mentality is different and he did handle jumping around pretty well. And I don't know if Stroud, if he was on 4 different teams in 6 or 7 years, I don't know if that's the type of guy that would handle that type of movement very well. And obviously the Texans don't want to be on any team. They'd love for him to just figure it out.
So I thought about this, and when Seattle got rid of Geno Smith and they decided to go with Sam Darnold, there was kind of like a little bit of reaction. Well, there's like Spider-Man memes and all that type of stuff. But if you look at what they moved on from with Geno Smith, I'm just going to pull up my my prep sheet here. These are the stats right here of Geno Smith last year. And in parentheses in 2024, I put what CJ Stroud stats were in 2024. So you look at these stats, they both played 17 games. Geno Smith had a higher completion percentage, 70.4 to 63.2. He had way more yards, 4,320 to 3,727, which isn't the end all be all. Stroud had the better TD to interception ratio, 21-15 to 20-12. Stroud got sacked 53 times. Geno got sacked 50. Geno had a better rating and a better QBR. And then when you compare that to this year with 14 games with Stroud, you're looking at still worse completion percentage, a little bit better TD to INT, sacked way less, still a lower rating, and a better QBR. I'm just saying all that to say that the similarity in production from what Seattle moved on from with Geno Smith is kind of what the Texans have right now. I'm not sitting here saying that CJ Stroud has the same ceiling or anything, doesn't have a higher ceiling than Geno Smith. I'm just saying that they basically saw what we've watched the last 2 years and they said, okay, well, we're going to get Sam Darnold. Now they're going to the Super Bowl. So you can look at it a couple of ways. You could look at it as, well, damn, CJ Stroud's kind of been, when you look at the bottom line, producing like Geno Smith, or you can look at it like CJ Stroud can improve and be closer to what Darnold is. It's interesting when you actually look at it.
If there was a Darnold-like player in free agency, I would assume a fair amount of people would be interested in the Texans going and getting that guy and doing something else with CJ Stroud entirely and moving on. I don't feel like there doesn't seem to be that type of guy. Maybe there will be a couple of players become available and we can have that discussion when that happens. But if there was a Darnold level player hitting free agency, I'd have a hard time not finding myself in that camp of, well, let's try that. Get what you can for CJ, see you later, and go a totally different direction. I feel like a lot of people would be wanting that and hoping for that. And I mean, we know what CJ Stroud's put together. Certainly the past 2 years hasn't been anywhere close to enough. And certainly you need more. And that's another thing coming out of this championship weekend, and specifically in the NFC game, it really demonstrated how far behind CJ Stroud is from those two guys. Stafford it felt like he was locked in a couple of different times there in that game where it's like, I'm going to do everything I can to will this team. And then the Seahawks were trusting Darnold to throw in situations where I don't even know if throwing was the right move, but they just trusted their guy to make the right decision and make a great play. And he ultimately did it a handful of times and was moving the chains and continuing to burn and eat clock in situations where I fully believe the Texans would have been, okay, we're just run and going to punt and let it be the defense. Like, Seattle's putting it in Darnold's hands and making him go out there and play. So it shows you that the chasm, the gulf between really good quarterback play and, being able to be locked in a big moment to what CJ's been able to put together in 2 seasons.
Swarm.
Timothy C says, man, watching that AFC game was like watching paint dry. Stidham pulled one Stroud move and it cost him that game. Pat scored 1 TD after a turnover. Yeah, it was the Drake made touchdown run. Yeah, it was definitely not the greatest for sure.
That's another thing. You mentioned the running backs, and I felt like at different points, every one of these running backs had a moment. Kenneth Walker had some early moments where it felt like he was just he's going to barrel through some of those Rams players. The Rams had 2 different running backs they relied on at different times, but something you astutely have pointed out, and it has disappeared from the repertoire of CJ Stroud, and every one of these quarterbacks at some point needed to use it. It was their legs. May had a rushing touchdown. He had that big run to ice the game there at the end. Stidham was moving around, moving the chains. Matt Stafford moved the chains with his legs. So in addition to the running backs, which we know needs to be better, in these big moments, your quarterback has to move around.
Yeah, I think it's kind of in the it also goes back to the contract where I was saying if you could get CJ Stroud in the Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield range, I would take it. I think the conversation is fair right now because I think that's the tier. Like CJ Stroud is trying to play like Sam Darnold has the last 2 years. I know it's weird to say, but CJ Stroud is trying to get to the level of what Sam Darnold has been the last 2 years. That's what he's trying to get to. Unfortunately for him, the production, when you look at it, it's closer to the Geno Smith territory than the Sam Darnold territory. That's the point. And on the chat, I think Christopher's going to cry. He's losing his mind over the Geno Smith thing, but Geno Smith won 10 games last year. I'm not sitting here saying that I would rather have Geno Smith than CJ Stroud. I'm saying that's the level of production that you're getting right now. And that's the level of production that Seattle said was not enough. And that's what Sam Darnold's got to do. So CJ Stroud's got to perform like Sam Darnold. And then hopefully you're not giving him, Trevor Lawrence money and it's closer to the Sam Darnold money because you could do a lot worse. Like there's no get rid of him or anything like that. So I think that's just kind of where they're at with the CJ Stroud, Sam Darnold thing. That's where they got to figure it out.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a Darnold, so you just have to hope your guy can get to the Darnold level and maybe it doesn't turn into a financial burden. And I would think that there's a lot of people that if CJ had an improved 2026 season over 2025, there'd still be a lot of people that'd be skeptical that it's going to hang around and would maybe even want another prove it season. I'd have a hard time thinking that they're not going to, they wouldn't take care of him if he had an improved 2026 season. But there's going to be a lot of, hey, let's prove this is for real. Anytime CJ Stroud has a little bit of success, and certainly when you look at what 2025, the games where he did struggle, the opponents he struggled against, hey, you got to have success against good teams too, not just lighting up the Cardinals and the half Ravens and the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you're watching those games, they're 0-4 against those teams. Like, it's like, well, we could have beat them. Well, you lost to all of them. It was pretty, the scoreboard was a little bit closer than the actual game against Seattle. The Rams, that was close before the fumble. The Broncos, that was close. CJ got hurt. Mills was kind of thrown to the wolves. That didn't go well. I kind of throw that to the side. I don't even hold that against either one of those guys. And then the Patriots, you just lost last week in kind of a slugfest manner in which they played. So I guess you could sit there and say that, but then you would also have to acknowledge that you went 0-4 against those teams. So, yeah.
The Texans were not walking on the field yesterday and beating the Seahawks or the Rams in either of those games. I know that's not how the playoffs works, but if the Texans had to play the Seahawks or the Rams yesterday, they weren't winning. They were going to lose that football game. And, I feel like they could have beat that Denver team. Obviously, I don't know what CJ would have done to mess it up, but they could have beat that Denver team. And if it had been in New England, they played that New England team. Yeah, probably not. It felt like they ended up being a pretty bad matchup for the Texans.
On the chat, Joe Duke asks a question. He says, if CJ doesn't have the rookie year he had, are we looking for a new QB? I wouldn't think so. Like, I don't think you need to look for a QB. You probably would. I don't want to say, like, I still think people are blinded by bad Sam Darnold. Like, when we talk about him, there's almost like an undertone. And I think there's like kind of a benefit of doubt with CJ because of what we saw rookie year. So I think it kind of cancels out. But no, I don't think they would be like trying to draft a quarterback or anything like that.
So if he had like some combination of 24, 25 as 2023, I mean, it'd be without a question. They'd be looking for a plan B. I don't know that he, wouldn't still be the plan A, just one more, just like, hey, let's just try to figure it out one more season. But yeah, you'd be a lot closer to finding a new one than maybe you are right now.
Let's get the latest on the coaching staff. We really haven't heard anything. We did see that Bobby Slowick is,
damn it, Bobby,
back to calling plays. So Bobby Slowick gets promoted. He's now the OC in Miami. Gerard Johnson, it feels like he's interviewing for a lot of gigs. We don't know what's going to happen there. If they don't do anything on the offensive staff, I think that's going to be kind of telling.
If they don't do anything on the offensive staff, it'll be extremely disappointing. Something has to get adjusted or jostled. And I know they will say, oh, well, if the players are good enough, the staff, great players make great coaches, things like that. Like, I understand that mentality to an extent, but maximizing what you do have and turning a good player into a great player, or turning a good player into a player that can have great performances, sometimes that is on coaching. And it feels like it'd be time to challenge CJ Stroud in a different way with a different quarterback coach, somebody else in his ear. I mean, Gerard Johnson's been here 3 seasons now, 2023. At the conclusion of that season, there was some excitement. Certainly, I thought it was a big deal that they were able to keep Slowick and him. And then it didn't look good in 2024. Bobby gets the axe. He gets blamed. Chris Strausser gets the axe. He gets blamed. 2025, yeah, there's some small things that the quarterback did a little bit well. Like, he threw the ball quicker, got rid of it quicker to avoid some of these sacks, but it's still not good enough. And in the biggest moments, the quarterback wasn't ready. It's like, we're not changing the quarterback. Don't we need to change the coach? Would be the question I'd be asking in the building.
Yeah, the Gerard thing, I think, is it seems like a no-brainer. I just don't know, how does CJ handle that? How do they handle that? What's their backup plan? Are we just talking about someone that's already on the staff elevating him, like kind of like a Cole Popovich type of vibe? Like, what do they do? So that's That's really where it is. But I don't know. I don't know that comfort is like their goal at this point, but it does feel like they would not be upset if Gerard Johnson went and got another opportunity at this point. Maybe made it a little bit easier on them.
Interviewing for the Philadelphia job, I don't know if he's going to get that. And I know that Philadelphia's had some people pull out of the opportunity to be their offensive coordinator. They've interviewed a few more people than I'm sure most were expecting they were going to interview. But if he gets that, bid farewell and find some more brain power on that offensive side. There's no salary cap on coaches. Go out there and add some different voices, some guys that they have some new ideas or some different coaching techniques. Go adjust some things from a coaching staff standpoint and figure it out with the roster, because we know there's going to be some things they need to adjust and change and fix for this roster, but change some stuff on the coaching staff. Put some brain power over there on the offensive side and see if that helps at all.
The other thing that I do find interesting, though, like when we're talking about this, I know we focus a lot on New England and Denver. I do find it interesting that Seattle hired a defensive-minded coach the year after the Texans hired a defensive-minded coach. He won 10 games his first year. Like, Seattle was the only 10-win team last year who didn't make the playoffs, and that's because their division's just a little bit tough. But, yeah, he won 10 games like DeMeco did his first year. And then he brought in a new quarterback 2 years after you brought in your quarterback, and they find themselves in the situation they're in. So I do think you can at least have an example of a coach that is defensive-minded, is able to get stuff going on offense. But then you trigger a lot of the people who every time there's an offensive opening in Houston, it's let's get a Kubiak, and I'll be damned. It's a Kubiak. So that just kind of adds to the frustration of that as well, where we always see the Kubiak stuff and hear that.
Well, and I wonder too, and the Texans sort of ended up as a victim of their own success. You mentioned the Seahawks. They didn't go to the playoffs. They got started on, I mean, they had an OC for 1 year in 2024, didn't like it. Boom, fired him, had a big search. And Clint Kubiak took the job in Seattle the day after the Texans fired Bobby Slowick. So there really wasn't even like an opportunity or a crossover a year ago. But I have to imagine if the Texans had the opportunity to go and get Clint Kubiak, that he might have been near the top of DeMeco Ryan's list.
Or he was pissed that he wasn't at the top of the list 2 years before.
Didn't get the crack originally instead of Bobby.
Yeah, I actually talked to McClain a little bit, but like, yeah, I just wonder if they didn't handle that as well as maybe they would have wanted. Kubiak would have wanted that to be handled.
Like there wasn't like,
I don't know.
I'm sure Clint probably wanted some guarantees or promises, or, Bobby was obviously going to call the offense if he was the offensive coordinator, but a path to being an OC and then a head coach candidate, certainly what Clint Kubiak ultimately ended up doing worked out better than sticking around and waiting for the Texans opportunity.
Swarm.
The Rhino says, will they make us stick with Jake Andrews?
You should be efforting an upgrade. You should be efforting an upgrade or a different center.
Yeah, you should definitely be trying to push him back on the depth chart. Like, I don't think we should be in a position where he's just handed the starting gig like he basically was this year. I think he'd probably do a little bit better than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely. I mean, I don't know if that's like at the top of your shopping list, but if you can find somebody to push him and challenge him, obviously Scruggs and Patterson aren't those guys because he beat them out and kept the job the entirety of the year. And the only time he didn't start was the week he was hurt, and Patterson filled in for him, and they went right back to Andrews, and he was getting the cracks at it with the first team from the moment he arrived. So they clearly liked him more than Patterson and Scruggs. Those aren't guys to challenge him, but somebody in the building to challenge him would be nice, be it a rookie that you could long-term see taking over for him, or another veteran that has some experience. And if you flat out want to replace him and make him your backup center, that's not going to hurt my feelings either. There's some intriguing center names in free agency. Obviously, Tyler Linderbaum's going to be at the top of a lot of teams' wish lists, but there's some other veteran centers that you could go take a swing at if you wanted to.
We have some news on defense too. Lassiter and Bullock added to the Pro Bowl. So add 2 more Texans defensive guys on the Pro Bowl. I know they'll enjoy traveling together to that. I actually thought Lassiter was the biggest snub of any of them. If you look at all the stats from the deflections to the tackle numbers to all that, I thought he was the biggest snub. But now him and Bullock added to the Pro Bowl. We talked about 7, 8 Pro Bowl caliber guys on defense, maybe even more. So there you go. Those guys get the accolades that I'm sure they wanted very badly.
Yeah, I mean, certainly deserved. It's not like you had to go, looking real deep down the availability. Like both these guys could have easily been on there from the jump. So great for them, and the first of many, I'm sure, for Kamari Lassiter, because if I know we had the conversation about Henry To'oTo'o the other day. Like 1 to 2 was good improvement, 2 to 3 was good improvement. If he goes 3 to 4 and he has improvement, like that's a solid player. If Kamari improves as much as he did between year 1 and year 2, between 2 and 3, and you're talking about one of the best corners in football. So there's a lot to love about the future for Kamari Lassiter. And I think the first of many for him when it comes to Pro Bowl, however much that matters to some people. It matters to some people don't give a damn. And for some reason, everybody's upset that Shedeur Sanders is an alternate.
We got TriStar this weekend. We've already given away experiences to meet Calvin Murphy and Jeff Kent. We're going to give away experience to meet Charlie Sheen later on this week. The show will be Friday through Sunday. We'll be out there Saturday. So come by, say hi. Just all types of memorabilia, all types of stuff going on. And we got the exclusive experiences. We also got your tickets if you would like them. We'll be there Saturday if you would like to go to the Senior Bowl.
The TriStar show. They got some incredible stuff out there. We're giving away, like Landry said, a Charlie Sheen meet and greet experience. But if you see somebody on the autograph schedule and you want to meet them, Nico Collins, Henry To'oTo'o, Jalen Noel, a couple of other legends, some great entertainment people. You can get the tickets right there, TriStarProductions.com. You can buy the meet and greet tickets for anybody. You're a big Karate Kid fan. They got a bunch of actors from that show as well. Sandlot. They got a bunch of people from the Sandlot. And those meet and greets, man, they're awesome. You get the tickets to the show. You get the opportunity to take a photo with them. You get the autograph on the item. So it's fantastic. TriStarProductions.com/Houston. And how you can win the Charlie Sheen one, just be on the lookout for the community page. We'll talk about it more over the week. It's going to be a Google form. You'll sign up. We'll randomly pick somebody, and somebody's going to meet and greet Charlie Sheen and hang out with him.
Yep. And that's going to be crazy, assuming that he shows up. I'm just putting that out there. But
I think he's a little bit more on the straight and narrow these days.
No, I watched the doc.
He's still a little there's still some jittery, weird energy associated with Charlie Sheen, though. There's still a little good. Is he gonna fly off the handle here?
So you're at the Senior Bowl. What are we looking for at the Senior Bowl? We're getting into off-season mode. We're finally getting there. We got a week between the big game and then the combine. Damn, we're less than a month away from that. So we have that going down as well. What are you looking for out there at the Senior Bowl?
I'm going to be paying a really close attention to these offensive linemen out here at the Senior Bowl. There's some pretty decent edge rush talent. There's some guys that I know a lot of the draft prognosticators are excited about from a pass rush standpoint. And while the Texans could probably use a succession plan after Danielle Hunter, a lot of us are going to anticipate that they helped his offensive line at some point. You hold up against some of these pass rushers, be paying attention. And I was getting my credential today, and somebody was there to pick up the Texans credentials, and the lady said, "Hey, make sure they're all there." He said, "Okay." So he's going through them and he's searching through them. He goes, "Hey, you're missing 2 names," and he wrote them down. And I saw, and they hadn't got the credentials made yet for Frank Ross and Cole Popovich. So the expectation is Cole Popovich is going to be here. And I would think talking to a lot of these guys, maybe on the field, observing them closely. So I'll be interested to kind of pay attention to a lot of these offensive linemen, because there's a lot of day 2, day 3 talent that's going to be, at the very least, you get them in the team and they're going to have an opportunity to play. And then there's some really good running backs here. Both the Penn State guys, Singleton and Allen, would be nice additions to the running back room. So definitely paying attention to them. And don't know if the tight ends are as exciting as they've been in the previous couple of years, but there's a little juice to them. Tanner Koziel, the UH guy, is sort of only a pass catcher only type of guy, but there's a few tight ends of note. So that's kind of primarily where I'm watching, and then also a safety as well. I mean, they spent a ton of picks on Senior Bowl guys last year and then added a couple more in undrafted free agency. So they liked the Senior Bowl last year. I don't have any reason to believe they won't like it a bunch this year too.
So maybe you'll get to talk to Pop.
I will ask if he would like to speak. I'd like to ask,
because you've been ducking him for a while. So now we get to.
I didn't want to, I started ducking him. They started a win streak. I didn't want to mess it up, so, but he's scheduled to be here per the credential request. So if he's in town, maybe he'd like to have a few minutes of conversation here. We can talk about it here on SNL.
There we go. All right. So this one's going to be a brief little setup. We actually got the Texans Collective at 6 today as well. That's going to go throughout the offseason. So be sure to subscribe to that channel. Join us there. We're basically just setting the scene. I'll be live at 10:30 as well. So 3 streams today. But to reset, the divisional or the championship Sunday did not make me feel that like the Texans were any closer. It actually got a lot of thoughts going on in my head when it came to that. And the Texans defense continues to get love. And Gerard Johnson, we will see what happens there. That's going to be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, TBD, to be determined, if he's sticking around, which I don't believe many of us are on board with, or if he's hitting the road, or there's a mutual parting of ways, whatever the hell they need to say to get a different guy in there to coach up CJ.
TriStar this Saturday. Be on the lookout. The Charlie Sheen will come down in the middle of the week. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. Be sure to always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.
What's up with Diego's height?
Too small.
We got to put. You have to get on the scale tomorrow for the bit.
I'm good.